Okay, so this is Goodbye, Chapter 1. Angle made their way down the street, glancing in shop windows and watching people rush by. They could feel the small, continuous vibration on the red brick sidewalk moving up through their being, stirred mostly by foot traffic and intensified by the occasional vehicle. The mid-morning sun was radiant and luminous, but it was as if it were behind a glass wall, out of their reach. The shadows moved along with the people who cast them, drifting, unacknowledged. Angle was simply one more shadow. They stopped in front of a cafe and peered inside. They noticed with an inner tug that they almost labeled as an ache or longing, that the barrier they had just experienced in their mind was multiplied in this space. Everything was made of glass. The design on the front door featured swirling patterns that made the inside look beautifully distorted. The door hinges were presumably made of something stronger, however the construction cleverly hid them. Delicacy was a luxury that required fortification, and not all things could be delicate. The doorknob appeared to be a solid orb of dark glass, and hands grasped it without caution or care. Their attention followed every movement as if it were their own. Angle watched from outside as people stepped through the door and stopped, looking around themselves in wonder. Angle's attention sharpened as the hush settled over the crowd. Phones were forgotten and conversations softened to a murmur as people stood, drenched in rainbows and sunlight. Entranced, everyone slowly wandered toward the line formed along the sweeping glass counter. Instinctively following the person in front of them, they looked less like busy people waiting to order coffee and more like parishioners moving forward to receive communion. A girl with long red hair gathered into two neat braids sat at the window, a notebook in front of her and a cup of tea at her elbow. Even without a clear view, they could trace some basic patterns, like the warning quality to the paper of her journal, trails of movement along its surface that lingered outward. What was behind the cover? She didn't open the book. Instead, she picked up a packet of sugar and ripped it open, emptying it into the cup. No movement was wasted or rushed, not even as she lifted the little jar of milk and tipped it into the tea, watching with pleasure the colorful storm that burst to life. Contained entropy, kept like a pet in a modern cage. She stirred the drink and sighed. Her face was so serene, so young, and so alive. I added an extra so there. Her face was serene. It was not so serene. It was serene. Angle searched the girl's thoughts, touching the surface. After gently prodding, they discovered that she was completely contented. Her mind was very quiet as she turned to lean over the cup, taking in the familiar scent of bergamot and the feel of steam rising to meet her face. It was a state most people sought to experience, or at least idealized, but very few achieved. Too often people spent their time thinking about the past or worrying about the future. None of this was on her mind at all. She was fully in the moment, luminous and unguarded. They could almost feel it. They hesitated at the window, glancing at the door. They could go inside. When was the last time they had talked to a person? They considered the implications and complications that would arise from simply opening the door, and sighed regretfully. This was not the right time and place. They had things to do elsewhere.